Today's video is a quick camera gear test, and as many of you know, I have the Canon R6. But I've managed to get hold of an R5 for a few days, so I wanted to see how these two compare in high ISO settings in video, and also how the clarity of those images stands up against each other in their respective full frame and crop modes. Throughout all the sample shots on both cameras, I was shooting in 4K UHD using CLOG with the white balance set manually to exactly the same value on both cameras. I also used the exact same lens throughout all the tests, namely the Sigma 50mm art lens. And other than apply Canon's own Rec. 709 conversion LUT, I've not altered the images in any way in post-production. Okay, first up, I've put the R5 in HQ mode, the R5 in non-HQ mode, and the R6 side by side, all in full frame. At lower ISOs, they all look noise-free. The R5 HQ mode looks the sharpest, followed by the R6, which is to be expected as these are both oversampled in the camera. The R5 non-HQ mode does look less detailed, but I don't mind that soft look on human subjects. As far as the high ISO noise is concerned, I expected to see a difference between the R5 standard and HQ modes, and maybe the HQ mode is slightly cleaner, but it's very minor. Both are quite clean and usable up to ISO 10,000, but at 20,000 you can see those dancing pixels in the dark areas. I think the R6 is usable up to 25,600, so it's about one stop better at most. But as happened in one of my previous tests, under LED lighting you can start to see some banding creep in, and at 40,000 that banding looks pretty ugly. Now we come to compare each camera's crop mode. And because the R5 oversamples in its crop mode while the R6 does not, I was very interested to see how much more detailed it is, A, because that mode doesn't overheat on the R5, and B, because I'm quite liking using the R6 handheld with smaller APS-C lenses. Now, you might not be able to see it after YouTube compression, but I think the R5's crop mode is significantly better than the R6's crop mode. The R6 still has a bit less noise, but on both cameras I'd try to keep the ISO below 10,000. What's quite odd though is that I saw less banding on the R6 here than I did in its full frame mode. Next, I wanted to see how the R6 in full frame mode compares to the R5 in crop mode. Not in terms of low light performance, obviously the R6 is a good deal better in that regard, but just overall image quality in a mid-level ISO setting. And ignoring the obvious depth of field differences, here I found them to look very similar indeed. I've not yet tested the 8K modes on the R5. Really, I have very little interest in that, so I probably won't. But the often talked about colour differences between these cameras is interesting. I found that both can look a little yellow without correction, but they do look slightly different from each other. It's not a big difference though, and I think it's been very much overplayed elsewhere. What I was most interested to see though was which camera has the closest out-of-camera colour to match my C70. Both cameras still need some correction to match closely, but even then, I think the C70 looks better. This video wasn't supposed to be about the C70 though. That will be the subject of another video that I'll make at the end of this month once I've had chance to play with the imminent new firmware. Because it sounds like Canon may have addressed at least one of my original complaints about the C70. But we'll see. I'll be back soon with some more film, sound and music production related content, so please consider subscribing for that if you haven't already. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.